Are you looking for alternative investments and tangible assets that help you build and protect your wealth while empowering your financial future? Look no further than Eckhart Enterprises. With over 37 years of experience in the industry, Eckhart Enterprises is your trusted partner in the world of alternative investments and asset management. They have a track record of success with more than 1,300 investors on board and over $700 million in capital invested in tangible assets.
Their specialty lies in offering immediate cash flow opportunities through mineral rights investments so that you don't have to wait decades to see your investments pay off. Their unique AML approach, born from decades of experience, focuses on aggregating, maturing, and liquidating assets strategically to maximize returns. Join Eckhart Enterprises. Visit EckhartEnterprises.com, spelled ECKARD enterprises.com today to begin your journey toward building and protecting your financial future.
For more information about alternative investments and asset management, visit EckhartEnterprises.com. And remember, Eckhart Enterprises is your gateway to tangible assets and lasting financial success. Contact Eckhart today.
For more information about alternative investments and asset management, visit EckhartEnterprises.com, spelled ECKARDENTERPRISES.com. And remember, Eckhart Enterprises is your gateway to tangible assets and lasting financial success. Contact Eckhart today.
Finally, a source of raw, real, and honest information on healthcare issues that matter most. Welcome to BS Free MD. From the latest medical information to how to stay sane as a doctor or a patient, no subject is taboo, no BS is allowed. Now, let's welcome your hosts, Doctors May and Tim Hindmarsh.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of BS Free MD, where we cut through the noise and get straight to the heart of healthcare. I'm Dr. May Hindmarsh.
And I'm Dr. Tim Hindmarsh. In today's episode, we have a fascinating guest who's making waves in the world of medical apparel. Nick Cienski, the CEO of KyurMD.
And before we dive into our conversation with Nick, let's get to know a bit more about him.
Nick Cienski is not your typical CEO. He's a renowned award-winning designer who's previously led product design and innovation teams at companies like Under Armour, Salomon, and Arc'teryx. He's also an accomplished high-altitude mountaineer, having conquered some of the world's highest peaks.
Nick's unique background has allowed him to bring a fresh perspective to the medical apparel market. His KyurMD products are designed, developed, and manufactured right in Baltimore, Maryland. They've been worn by Olympic champions, members of U.S. Special Forces, high-altitude Sherpas, mountain rescue teams, A-list celebrities, and even Sir Richard Branson during his inaugural Virgin Galactic flight to space.
Nick's philosophy is simple. Instead of creating another low-cost, mass-produced medical scrub, wow, yes, we've seen those before, he focuses on designing highly desirable, technically advanced collections that exceed customer expectations.
And what sets KyurMD apart is that it approaches medical apparel from the perspectives of elite athletes, mountaineers, polar explorers, sounds like Tim, and astronauts who depend on technical fabric innovations to excel in challenging environments.
And one more thing, KyurMD takes pride in being made in America with a lifetime guarantee, ensuring superior quality and durability. They also have a strong commitment to social responsibility and economic progress, partnering with organizations like Mission 14 to make a positive impact.
Love that. So if you want to learn more about KyurMD, visit their website at KyurMD.com. That's spelled KYURMD.com. And when you make a purchase, please use the code BSFree25 at checkout for a 25% discount on your first order. Well, hello, Nick. Welcome to the show. We're so excited you're here to talk about this amazing product.
Thanks very much for having me.
Yeah, you bet. I've actually been seeing patients again We drove across the country in 11 days, and I think I had 2 days off, and I was right back to work. So, yeah, I've been wearing them, and I've been bragging about them, and they
Excellent.
unbelievably comfortable. And I can't wait to kind of dive into your philosophy and where this came from, because medical scrubs have been somewhere between. Um, let me see. It's kind of like what Dolly Parton said about how she tried to put a 10 pounds of potato in a 2 pound bag, and ill-fitting circus tents.
Yes, it's amazing when you look back and you sort of zoom out on the industry, and it's like, why has nothing been done? And obviously, not being a doctor myself, I've periodically been wheeled into various emergency rooms and hospitals over time, and it always has been rather disheartening and somewhat frightening, seeing what I do with athletes on the one hand, and then at the hospital where you would think people would want to be more comfortable. We always hear about long shifts and how hard they work and running up and down hallways and picking up patients and all of these things, that the product would be so under par, what you would think it would be.
I
Yeah.
just think back to, like, because we've been doing this for 30 some years, and I think back to the horrible pea green to it's often blue now. They're just pieces of cotton that look like old sheets sewn together in various sizes. One size fits all. That I'm like, I thought years ago, like, what the heck is this? But I guess
Well, it came from a really bizarre. Yeah, I mean, there's so much stuff in science that's just, or in medicine, that's just kind of bad science. And it was this whole idea that you had to put on garments to go into the OR that had only been in the hospital.
Mhm.
So, I guess there's some logic to that. But then what they gave you was like essentially prison issue. It had the hospital name stamped on it, the laundry. I mean, all the stuff left the hospital to be laundered and then come back. So what's
Right.
the difference if I did the laundry at my house? And I mean, it's just silly. And then
Yeah.
of course it bled into, we used to have doctors that had a at least a tie and a suit jacket on. They would take the suit jacket off. They would put on a white lab coat. That went away. And now everyone's just wearing scrubs, which makes sense. You should be comfortable when you work. But at the same time, you should look presentable. And there's been a real gap in that world, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting as I sort of looked in, and just talking a lot to doctors, and so many of them have sort of left, like you said, the shirt and tie at home for scrubs. But the comments to me were, make me look like the professional that I am, and other comments like, I'm tired of wearing my pajama pants to work every day. Were sort of like stuck in the back of my mind. And it's like, well, how do doctors and nurses set themselves apart? And there wasn't really any way other than the lab coat to do that. And so I think pushing the aesthetic boundaries allowed me to sort of go places where a traditional scrub V-neck doesn't go. And so still making it a practical garment, easy on, easy off, and so on and so on, but giving it an aesthetic flair. And that really wasn't nobody was really doing that, which was, to me,
so
encouraging, but kind of depressing at the same time.
I think my brain, I don't know, was innovating along with you, because over the last few years of probably 10, I started going to I won't name the company, but very famous sportswear company that people shop at for their outdoor needs. And I've been wearing their pants because they move and fit and stretch and had multiple pockets, and they were aesthetically nice, and they sort of had a dressy but not quite
Mm-hmm.
scrubby look. And
Right.
and people always like, oh, those are super nice. Where'd you get those? Those aren't typical scrubs. And so a lot of the nurses and other professionals would get them. So I guess I'm thinking you're obviously developed this from an athletic mindset too. Tell our audience like the journey from the outdoor journey that you were on in the sports and adventuring, in mountaineering, to how you got into designing clothes and now scrubs.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, it's been a very long journey, and completely unplanned. I was, when I quit college, I decided that I was going to become a mountaineer. Like that was a thing, that there's such a career path as becoming a mountaineer. And anyhow, but I gave it a shot, and I spent a little over a decade in the Himalayas, and I've climbed on a number of the very big peaks, Everest and K2, and I've tried to ski a few of them, and tried to snowboard one, and just always just lived as that sort of being an adventurer in that mindset. And the career sort of never blossomed, but I typically froze my butt off on any mountain, anywhere, anytime. And so I really started to understand how gear works and what makes better gear and why you need better gear. And for me, in some cases, it was life saving or not. And so I understood things like, how do I stay more comfortable? Because if I am more comfortable, my feet don't freeze, and if my feet aren't freezing, I can go higher or go faster or get out of a situation. And so it more than anything else, it instilled in me this idea that there's a gap in performance and your gear, and if the two aren't linked, you don't function as well as you could. And so when I sort of from that, I just started making my own gear to go skiing in and other things. And so I loosely got into design from that perspective. And I never went to design school or anything, and sort of just really learned how to understood fabrics and technologies and construction, and just started making gear that really functioned to solve problems. And that's really always been my understanding of performance of gear and fashion design, is always the underpinnings are always solved to a problem.
Yeah, I'm absolutely 100% a confessed gearhead, and I've done a lot of sports where, like if you're scuba diving, your gear is going to save your life, or it's going to, and I'm a licensed skydiver. I've got over 600 skydives, and it's like, it has to perform to a certain level to save your life, and it has to fit properly so that, as it's saving your life, it's not ripping your testicles off or some other horrible thing. And so, fit is so critical. And, I'm a bit older, so I ride Harleys, and I've ridden, some really long rides. And it's like, man, if something doesn't fit you properly, it doesn't matter how fancy it is. It
Right.
doesn't matter what it looks like. It's worthless.
Yeah.
And yet we go to work, we do 12-hour shifts or 14-hour shifts, or, all this ridiculous amount of call, and we wear pieces of sandpaper that don't function very well. And it really is kind of amazing when you step back. Here's a well-paid profession where people spend their entire young adulthood to become doctors, and some spend more than that, in subspecialties and fellowships, to wear a garbage bag to work. Like, it just is amazing.
Yeah, I was actually quite surprised when I started researching this, that there was no government body that decided what made a scrub and what didn't make a scrub. And so I thought, well, that sounds wrong. And then I heard so many doctors talking to me about chafing, and I thought, all right, well, I get chafing if you're running an ultra marathon, but I mean, ultimately, why are you guys chafing? Like, what are you wearing that? And so then I bought myself some scrubs and actually just, did things with them. And yes, unbelievably uncomfortable. And like I said earlier, it was so interesting to understand just the technology that's available at your fingertips that could be brought into this space to make product more comfortable really wasn't being used. And that's where, when Tim, you during the intro, you sort of talked a little bit about my philosophy of starting a brand, of not making a Me Too or a fast fashion scrub. And at the end of the day, if scrubs are being sold for $30, $40, $50 for a top or a bottom, the manufacturers making it in Asia probably have $1.50 to $3 to spend on a piece of fabric. And you can only get so much for $1.50 or $3. And so it is kind of what it is. It doesn't last, it fades, it tears, and it ultimately chafes.
So, how did you go from professional mountaineering bum or whatever you want to call it into working for, Under Armour, Arc'teryx, all these companies? I mean, you're not a fashion designer, so is your degree in marketing, or how did you get into that? I'm curious.
Yeah, no, I don't have a degree. It was largely just through experience of me, kind of trial and error. I at the very beginning, I created a little mini collection of ski apparel, and I won 3 design awards. And really, what I did in ski apparel, what hadn't been done was, ski apparel back in the day was sort of yellow jackets with black shoulders, and remember that whole sort of thing. And so I didn't do that because I didn't have access to those kinds of fabrics. So I was making ski apparel that had a sort of a more streamlined, sort of faster street look, and it was a little bit more futuristic, and it got noticed. And so from there, I was able to get a position with the Benetton Sports System out of Italy. And they gave me this huge project to work on, and it really pushed me to sort of, I had to do everything from design to production to making overseas production, then all the marketing, the catalogs, trade shows, the sales plan, like everything. And I'd never done a lot of that, and so it was very good, sort of like baptism by fire of like, and Juliana Benetton was terrifying as a person because she ruled with an iron fist. But she made you as a designer understand design is not a pretty picture. Design is an idea in your head that solves a problem, but then you've got to take it all the way around to the customer at the end. Like, you got to understand the whole journey of the product and why you made it in the first place, all the way to how the people are going to use it at the end of the thing. And so I got to learn there fairly quickly. And then, I was in Vancouver, and Lulu was just starting. Arc'teryx was just getting into apparel. I knew a couple of those individuals, and sort of just, there weren't that many people making sort of technical apparel back in the day. And so it was a small group of us. And so I was able to jump into some of those positions.
We've actually, I don't want to get too divergent, but we actually have done an episode where I lose my mind over yoga pants. And, yoga pants, tattoos, and sushi are all in the same world. It's either really, really good or really, really bad and might kill you.
Good
so
point.
I'll just leave it at
that. I like that. Well, I think the whole thing with design is interesting because it's kind of the same. You get so many people in the world of fashion that really just draw a picture. But they don't really know. I mean, it's just a flavor. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't solve anything. It's just a pretty picture. They have no concept of how to actually make it. And so, to me, what I tried to do with this brand and in past work was really work with athletes and in this case doctors and nurses, and understand the problem that I'm trying to solve. Otherwise, I'm just drawing pretty pictures for the sake of drawing pretty pictures, which doesn't really offer any value to the end consumer or the brand. And then I think that's where the big divergence is in sort of the world of apparel now, or brands that mean something, provide a technology, an experience, a durability, a sense of quality, versus just, trash that just keeps coming and coming and coming.
Yeah.
No, I think that's 100% the case. I remember you think of some of the other brands in the outdoor world, like even like Yeti, and they sell a very expensive cooler, but when you look at their marketing, it's all about experience.
Right.
So they don't sell you a cooler; they sell you the experience, and then they have a picture of the cooler at the end. And it was real. There was a book, I'm not sure if you're familiar with, called Friction, and it's how you know, you have to either solve the friction point, or you have to kind of cause the friction point to get people's attention.
Right.
And this idea that you are, I think of from the marketing side of my brain, because I just love the creativity side, which is, you are a medical professional. You should act and look like one.
Correct.
And we're not going back to the tie. Like having a tie in the ER is in completely ridiculous risk that you're taking. It'd be like policemen wearing ties. Like, really?
Right.
And so this idea that you can look professional, you can feel professional. Like, we're wearing your clothes right now, and it's so comfortable. Like if I didn't wear it to work, I just wear it all the time.
Yeah, and I think that was what I was really striving for was, like it was interesting too that scrubs have always been, and this to me was sort of like the pain point for me as a sort of innovative thinker and designer was, why is it that the scrub is made out of one fabric, top and bottom, 360 degrees? Like for what? I mean, I get that, back in the 70s it was cheaper and you could do that and you should do that, but given where we are today and what we know about the human body and how we generate heat, how the body cools down, and all of these things, one fabric solution isn't the solution. And so that's why I use 3 different fabrics to make my scrub set, for that very reason. And then, and I think it's the ability to sort of like shift the perspective a bit, right? Like we stop doing things the way you've always done them.
Right.
Like, you don't have to do that anymore.
I think that's what doctors, I mean, I was thinking about this whole thing of why do we have this crappy cotton uniform that comes from the hospital, or, nurses get more innovative. They go out and they buy the little fun pattern cotton things, or a lot of these nurses sew their own. But I think what Tim said, to the point where these are so comfortable, you just want to wear it all the time. We wear our athletic wear at home, and we pay good money for our athletic
Right.
wear, and we're comfortable wearing it just at home. It's boggling why physicians, most of them earn a good living, don't, want to wear this crap to work and are happy about doing that. And they spend money on great clothes for going out and athletic wear and their gear. But yeah, when it comes to clothes, and especially like this in the scrub situation in the OR and urgent cares where we worked, I'm like, this makes no sense to me. I think it's part of what we just said, that I think we just get stuck in this mindset of, well, this is just what we've always done. But nobody's really challenged that. And so I want to know, what was the process that you got into the medical world? Were you literally like lying on a gurney looking at the crap we're wearing and going, what the heck? Or did someone approach you, or what was the story behind that?
It actually happened before a couple of years earlier. I had a friend that got hurt overseas, and I was at Walter Reed, and I was amazed at I guess I'd always heard about Walter Reed and assumed for whatever reason that it was sort of like the pinnacle of, these vets are coming in, the best in doctors and nurses and care and all the rest of it. And so I was really expecting to see sort of like, wow, and I wasn't. In fact, I was sitting with a friend of a friend who had just lost his knee, his leg below the knee, and he was wearing this sort of thick neoprene stump, and every 20-30 minutes he would roll it off and pour the sweat out of it, roll it back on. So I asked him, I was like, why, what's going on? Let me see this thing. And so he gives me this sort of heavy neoprene smelly thing. And he goes, well, I've got to wear this, and I said, well, 40 minutes up the road where I work, I have a machine that I could make you one of those things that breathes, is lightweight, has got equal amounts of compression, and you wouldn't have to take it off for a whole day. And I invited a bunch of the Walter Reed doctors to come up to the facility and see it and see the product. And they turned me down twice. And I was sort of like bugged by this. And I said, well, and so then I sort of poked around, like, why did they turn me down? And it turns out that institution has bought that particular stump sleeve since the 70s from some company, in Europe. And that's just how they've always done it. And they're not really that interested in changing it. And so when the opportunity was to sort of, for me to launch a brand, I quickly looked at the medical space, knowing from brief experiences that the products there are not that great. And to your earlier point about, physicians earn a good living, so why are they wearing this type of product? When I first launched, and I would have physicians come to me and say, your pants are pretty expensive compared to what I wear now. And I said, agreed. Tell me, how many times do you go skiing in a year? And they said, maybe 12 days. And went on to say that he owns 3 pairs of Arc'teryx ski pants, probably, $400 or $500 at least each. And I said, so for 12 days, you've spent, you have 3 pairs of pants, but you're wearing $50 pants, $30 pants for your work. And his comment was interesting. He goes, I totally get where you're going with this, but that's my only option. At the top end of scrub pants, I hit the ceiling sort of at that $50, $60 mark. And so if I had an option to buy a better pant that's more comfortable, more durable, all of those things, I would. But I can do that in the world of skiing or in the world of fitness or in other things, golf, et cetera, et cetera. But where I work, I don't really have that option. And so to me, that was a bit of a green light of like, there's something here, there's a miss here, there's an underserved customer base here.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's no question. The thing that's, the problem, medicine is tough. Part of the good part of medicine is we do the same things over and over again, which, if you're doing a procedure, you want to have somebody that knows how to do the same thing over and over again and doesn't waver from that. Unfortunately, that's also the bad side. So we tend to limit innovation because we're so risk averse. And so I can completely understand these guys going and looking at you. I can make this sleeve. I can make it here in Baltimore. I can make it faster. I can make it better. Blah, blah. And they go, yeah, but we have a contract with this guy, and his nephew is on the board of directors. And I mean, I have been in those meetings, and it's just like, you sit there and you go, I have never been around a group of smarter and wealthier people that just like lose their common sense.
Yeah.
Because we don't have to innovate. And in a way, sometimes innovation really is threatening because it might be more dangerous.
But then on the flip side, when you think about, and again, I'm not a doctor, so shut me up if I'm going down the wrong road here. But if I look at machinery, x-rays, operating tools, et cetera, those get innovated all the time. And in fact, one physician said, I'm operating tens of millions of dollars worth of equipment in $12 pants. Like, how does that make sense?
Right.
And so I get what you're saying, but I think there's a shift in the paradigm. I think what excites me about the medical apparel marketplace is that up until now, I think we all agree that there really wasn't a marketplace. It was just a product that was delivered to a customer, and it didn't really matter how much the customer earned or where they worked or whatever, what they did. It was the basic same product, right? 3-pocket top, 2-pocket pant, done. But now with so many medical professionals buying their own gear, and they have now the opportunity to be brand loyal. So there's this whole emergence of brands, which never existed before. When you think about scrubs, never had a logo on them, but now all of a sudden, you've got scrubs with logos on them, and people are becoming kind of loyal to the brands that they like. They like the way they fit, what they work, et cetera, et cetera. It sets them apart, all of those things. So I think, and what's exciting to me is that in the next few years, I think brands are going to start emerging in the medical space, and you will get market segmentation, which today there is no market segmentation. It's interesting because the industry is huge. I mean, it's a $16 billion apparel industry in the US. And so it's not an insignificant industry that has no segmentation, right? There's no good, better, best. There's no Audi or 7 Series at the top, and then there's the, Chevy whatever at the bottom. And, it doesn't exist. It's just a thing. And I think that's all coming.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I never thought of it that way. I mean, that really is. I although I do drive Corvettes, so they are Chevys, but I digress.
Right.
So I want to get into. Let's talk about the scrubs, and the medical apparel that you do design. Tell us first off what you've got available, and what sets it apart from the other. I won't say higher end stuff, but what's out there already.
Right.
Yeah.
I started looking at sort of like the human body, and that's usually how I start when I work with athletes. The biggest thing with athletes' concerns around their performance is they want to have, we've always termed it sort of zero distractions. Whether it's a football player or a soccer player, any athlete doing anything never wants to spend a nanosecond worrying about how their product, whatever they're wearing, is on their body, whether it's a shoe or a helmet or a football pad, whatever. They don't want to feel it. They don't want to know that it's there. And so how can you build product that really just doesn't affect you at all? Because if you're thinking about, I've got sweat here, I'm hot there, I'm chafing over there, my shoe is too tight, you're not thinking about what you should be thinking about on the field of play. And so I looked at doctors the exact same way. It's like, how do I increase an individual's ability to perform over a 10 or 12 hour shift, no matter what they're doing? And so I started working with ER doctors in Las Vegas, thinking that, those individuals are sort of pushing out a pretty serious amount of mileage through their shift. They've got a high level of stress, anxiety, all of these things. And so they're probably generating a lot of heat. How do I mitigate that heat? And so I started looking at a technology that I use on the base layer, which is actually a carbon infused polyester yarn. And what it does is that it doesn't wick moisture. I mean, it does wick moisture, but what it does is it actually evacuates the humidity off your skin. So before you sweat, you get heat buildup on your skin surface. This product evacuates that heat off your skin. So you'd have to run and exercise and do whatever an awful lot longer, 26 to 28% more, before you actually broke into a sweat. So the product keeps you that much more comfortable for that much more time. And when I first bumped into this, I was like, yeah, whatever. I mean, I've seen so many technologies. It's like, let me see, does it actually work? And so in 2015, long before I did this project, I actually tried to climb 6 of the highest mountains in the world in a single year. And nobody had ever done that before. And so I went to this company and I said, all right, if your stuff is so good, let me have it. I'm making all of my gear out of it. And I made everything from socks to long underwear, my one-piece down suit, like everything that I needed to survive for 1 year in the Himalayas was made out of this technology. And I said, it's like, I'm either coming back alive or I'm coming back in a box because your technology didn't work. And it was awesome. And I outfitted not just myself, but I had camera crews. And so there's like 50 of us. And today, like last week, there were still Sherpas on the Himalayas summiting mountains wearing that gear from 2015. Like, that's how good it is, because it never washes away or it's permanently embedded in the yarn. It lasts forever in the yarn. And so when I started thinking about solving doctors' problems in the ER, this was sort of a natural place for me to go.
I love it.
And that's what May is wearing right now.
That's what May is wearing right now, and it's what's on the back of the scrub shirt as well. The mesh on the back, it's the same fabric. Because you lose most of your heat up here. You get heat buildup and loss between the shoulder blades, right? So I wanted this sort of close there. And what's cool with this stuff is, and this is what I found out in the mountains, was if you layer it up, like if you wear the base layer and the scrub top together, you'll actually get 2 layers on the back, and it actually evacuates heat a lot faster because they're layered on top of each other.
So I'm thinking you need to go into the sleep sheets world next because we were just looking for some for our new bed yet to arrive. And I know there's some technologies. I don't know if it's similar. Uh, the one we actually bought uses, I think it's like charcoal or lava, something supposed to same idea where it's wicking away the moisture before it forms into sweat on your body to keep you cool.
So the technology we use for this is from a Colorado-based company called 37.5, which they do make bed sheets.
Yes.
So if you're looking for bed sheets, they do make bed sheets, and I can't remember who they make them for, but I'm sure on Google.
I think that's Sleep Number.
Yeah,
that's Sleep Number 37.5.
Yeah,
yep.
That is, it is really, like, I mean, it's basically like smart fabric, and and I've ridden a motorcycle enough in 105 degrees where I'm like, boy, that would be awesome, because
right.
it's just, like, I mean, you can't, cooling is, you can put more clothes on and to get warm, and then of course they came up with stuff that's really thin and warm and reflects your own body heat, and but the cooling part is really interesting, because mostly you just take clothes off, right?
Yeah,
right. And if you work in a hot environment, because I mean, like, I'd use it on the mountains in the cold, and it really was good. And you'll notice too that it retains no odor. So one of the ER docs in Vegas, he goes like, "This stuff's amazing. I've worn it for 5 shifts and I haven't washed it." And it's like gross but cool all at the same time.
Yeah.
It reminds me of a doctor we worked with years ago who he had a farm literally across the road from the clinic we worked at, and he would go home to feed his cows and come back with his scrubs on covered in cow manure, and I'd be like, oh my gosh.
Right. He had a cow eat a pager, and he got paged from inside of a cow.
Yeah. No.
So
anyways,
you actually are a great guy.
So the whole I was going to say the whole point about being in the OR, or if you're busy and being hot, is awful, because the times we've spent in the OR where you're layered up and you have all those waterproof protective long sleeve stuff, and it's hot, you get hot in there and nothing breathes. I mean, there's nothing worse than if you're doing a surgery for 8-12 hours. I mean, that is awful.
We've got a lot of orthopedic surgeons, spine guys, hip replacement, and they're all wearing that base layer just underneath their gowns. They don't even put scrub tops on. It's just that, then their lead apron, or then their gown, and they're in, and it keeps them a lot cooler and a lot drier. So once you do sweat, what's interesting with this is that your skin will start to feel cool just as it evaporates this sweat off, because the way it works is that it breaks down the sweat droplets into tiny droplets that spread out all over the whole garment. So it dries incredibly quickly once it does get wet. So it's highly versatile, and I mean, you can run in it, you can go do yoga in it, you can sleep in it, and I mean, it's a pretty versatile piece of kit.
And then as far as like taking care of it, laundering, and just wash as usual.
Wash and dry, as usual.
I usually, with my athletic wear, always hang it up to dry and don't put it in the dryer, just because I thought it would last longer. Do you have to do that with this?
It would, if you've got, because most wicking treatments on polyester are a surface treatment that is applied to the fabric, and those will wash out over time. And so not drying it extends that on it as well. And the base layer, this one also has a antimicrobial finish on it, and so that just helps keep you safe. But so it was really interesting sort of doing the next to skin to start there. And then like the scrub top, the front of the scrub top is actually an FDA approved level 2 certified fabric, which I wanted to find something that was actually protective, like against bodily fluids coming through and so on. And so this fabric is just a straight up 100% polyester knit. And they apply this finish to the surface of it. But what's unique about this finish is that it lasts for over 75 washes. And at 75 washes, it's still repelling all of the bodily fluids off the garment. So I wanted something that was sort of protective. So level 2 certification means that, if you think like an operating room gown is a level 4, this is a level 2. So this is for, it's not meant to be gown worthy, but if you're in the ER and things are happening to you, you can feel somewhat more protected by this top.
And we know very well and good, especially working in urgent care, how bodily fluids hit us regularly. And a lot of times, to my stupidity and detriment, I wouldn't put on the protective gown and I would lance, abscess, and boom, it's like all over me. I had numerous times when our office manager would have to run home and get me a new shirt from her house or something. And it
Right.
stinks. It's gross. So to have something that repels that pretty well,
Yeah.
for, more minor things is huge,
Yeah.
because there's
Yeah,
nothing
no.
worse than having that all over you.
Nothing worse than being coated in all 7 bodily cheeses.
Exactly.
Right.
And the pants, tell us about the pants, because the fabric for those is different, obviously, than the base layer. But what is
Yeah, the biggest thing I heard about pants was how they always seem to be the first to go. Like, I think like hems, waists, pockets, and they I guess there's just a lot of wear and tear on them, more so on the pants, and so the doctors in Vegas were saying, like, go and find something that's going to make a pant last longer. And years ago, I had worked with this fabric, which was originally developed for U.S. Special Forces. What they wanted was a fabric that their operators could wear that didn't fade, didn't tear, was lightweight, super breathable, water repellent, had bags of stretch in it, so it was super comfortable no matter what position they were needed to be in. It's expensive to make. And so special forces use it for a while, and then it sort of sat on shelves. And now it's getting a resurgence because it's used by NFL and MLB for all of their pants. That'll just sort of shows you how rugged it is. And so this, what's great about this fabric is that it is all of those things. I mean, it's 9 times more. It's 9 times stronger than a 10-ounce denim. And you think a 10-ounce denim is almost sort of workwear weight denim. And
Right.
most people wear like a 6 or 7-ounce denim as your pair of jeans. And this is all made out of a nylon 6/6 yarn, which is sort of the strongest nylon yarn. It's very fine, and it encapsulates the spandex within it. And so typically spandex is just woven or knit into a garment, and it's a very fine yarn, and it can often pill up and break, and then you get those little fuzz balls happening.
Mm-hmm.
And this, it's the yarn's actually encapsulated inside the nylon, and so it doesn't crack and fade and pop like a less expensive version would. And so the pants are expensive, but they do have 10 pockets on them, and they are made out of this sort of super fabric. And I love the fact that the fabrics are all different and that they're sort of made to do the job that they're meant to do. I'm not looking for one fabric to kind of do everything.
Right. That's what I love about it. And I noticed that right away, is the different fabrics. And then I'm thinking, this is great. This stuff, it's made, you thought of all the things in mind. I mean, the waist, I can't speak to your pants. I think they're the same, but they have an adjustable built-in weight belt that I love, because I have a tiny waist and pants never fit me right. The multiple pockets, just the stretch and give, and they felt like, I would wear them in the office, but I'd want to also just work out and do things in them because they're so functional.
Most of us in the ER and urgent care world, if you had gone to the gym more than twice, we just gave up on scrub pants.
Exactly.
And you get I started wearing, what is that stuff from the,
another athletic brand.
Yeah. And, and I would just get something that fit and had pockets and didn't look totally dumb. And, they still didn't last that long.
No.
Because it's amazing when you're doing 12-hour shifts and you're putting stuff in and out of pockets all the time. It's amazing how quickly the seams blow up. but the actual scrub pants were just worthless. I mean,
Yeah.
because they never fit. And then if you have the drawstring ones, they never stayed tied, which is
Right.
like, that's a problem. And then, if I'd get something that would fit, because I have, athletic quads, and then I look like SpongeBob, because you shorten the pants and they're so wide. It's like, welcome to 1975 and your Lee wide
Right.
legs. So it's just like,
Right. Right.
see you
Yeah.
later.
I know. It's
Bye.
like you've thought of everything. I love that.
Well, it was that, like I stacked the cargo pocket. So it kind of looks, I wanted the pant to look like a pant. So it didn't feel
Yeah.
like a cargo pant.
Right.
And so all the pockets are like layered inside. And so from the outside, like I think it's on the left leg, there are 3 pockets on that one sort of pocket area. But you can like put gloves in one, scissors in one, and then you've got a little zippered pocket for anything else. And it's got a phone pocket that's sort of hidden in the seam. And I wanted to sort of keep it sort of sleek and simple looking, so you didn't necessarily feel like you were running around in like 1980s cargo pants, big giant pockets flapping everywhere. And yeah, and then I think just keeping it super streamlined was always sort of
I
was
love
always
it
the plan.
because we want to look good and be functional. But I think
Yeah,
even just as important, if not more so, to me, something I grew up with being a fellow Canadian, what always was instilled in us was buy made in Canada, buy local.
yeah.
And this is a made in America product, right? So tell us about how can you do that?
It actually was surprisingly difficult. The fabric, there's some amazing fabrics in this country, and mills, and there are good factories. The difficult thing with American factories, or factories that sort of produce this level of quality product, they're full of government work, and so you can't find space in the factory to make, like where I make mine. They make a ton of military uniforms, and whether it's for Navy or Air Force, and so they get how to make that type of product that's got pockets and belts and things like that. And it's not everybody that can do that. So it took me a year to find that one factory. I probably went through 12 factory trials, sending them patterns and fabric and get them to make me a prototype, and it kind of wasn't the quality that I wanted. And it took me a number of tries before I found this one. And the base layer, I tried to make it in 3 factories. Ended up actually making it in downtown Baltimore, which was kind of cool.
Nice.
With a factory that's been around for 45 years. And so it was actually, I mean, it was satisfying to finally get there. It was nerve wracking along the way, because I didn't know when I would land this proverbial plane. Like when can we find a home for these products?
Right.
So it was hard. But it was interesting you talking about sort of the look, the sort of the functionality side, and then sort of the aesthetic side. And I a few years ago I worked with Richard Branson on this Virgin Galactic, and the challenge was, come up with a commercial flight suit for people that are going to fly into space, not astronauts, like not jet fighter pilots, but Joe Average, who and I actually met a lot of the early astronauts, and they were like retired businessmen, retired teachers, and Branson himself. And they've been waiting for 15 or 16 years to go to space. And so the challenge was, how do I make this thing functional, like highly functional? It keeps them cool, keeps them protected, all of those good things. And Richard was interesting, because he was going, yeah, I get all the technology, I got it. What am I going to look like? Like one day I'm going to walk down the runway, I'm going to climb into a spaceship, and I'm going to go to space. What are you going to make me look like? And so to me, it was, wow. It's like, okay, it's not just a utilitarian, run of the mill flight suit here. This needed to feel superhero like. It needed to feel futuristic and pioneer like, and a little otherworldly. And so how was all of that? How do you blend all of those things to make sure that the aesthetic is as important as the technology, but it kind of just needs to feel like it's intuitively part of the garment. It's not like too forced.
I love it. I
No,
love
So
it.
yeah,
it's true. I remember, with SpaceX when they did that Bob and Doug launch, and how like you looked at the spacesuits and you're like, okay, Elon clearly owns this company. I mean, it was so outside the box, but it was actually really cool.
yeah,
And yeah, we actually did an entire episode because normally I'm the guy that's wearing a Harley or Iron Maiden t-shirt and a pair of shorts. So it's interesting because we did an entire episode on, you really do need to dress appropriately. Like there's uniforms for a
yeah,
reason, and it
yeah.
changes your attitude as well. And so I've actually started to buy some nicer clothes because now we live in, we worked for years as country doctors in a logging, small logging community, so there's sort of an aesthetic there. And now we live in a,
And I have to look at you every day.
yeah, I know you do, but I'm fine to just not wear clothes and you can look at me all
Oh
you
my
want. So
goodness.
that's different. So getting into
Oh,
the social responsibility part of this, before I get too sidetracked, tell us about Mission 14, which sounds really, really interesting.
Yeah, it's actually an organization that my wife and I started in 2010. We went with our a little small church we went to down in downtown Baltimore, and we went to Nicaragua, and we ended up in sort of this big old garbage dump, and we were shown where young girls are being sold for sex to dump truck drivers just to put food on the table, and our hearts broke. Like we had no idea that this really happened in the real world, and so we were sort of hit in the face with the reality of the situation. And it turned out that it was largely economic. The families were third and fourth generation individuals, families growing up in the garbage dump, and they were making $1 a day picking garbage and selling it. And so the opportunity to make a little bit of money by selling their daughter for sex seemed like it was a card they had to play. And so we started a small sewing school at the edge of the dump. And being a factory guy and spending time in that world, I went to factories in Managua, and we got sewing machines and tables, and they trained a few women for us to become instructors in our sewing school. And we then partnered with other individuals and NGOs and church groups in Managua to find us students. And we took people right from garbage dumps, and we taught them how to sew on industrial sewing machines. But we didn't kind of leave it there. We sort of said, well, we're not want to be a school that just churns out students. And so we spent time with all the factories, partnered with every one of them, and got them to hire all of our graduates. And all it was great because all the factories came to us and they said, here's the test that we're going to give every person that comes to our has got to be able to do these 5 things. Teach them how to do these 5 things super well. They got a job. And so we did. And so we've since then we probably put 900 people through the sewing school, and gotten most of them, about 80% of them, have work. And it was amazing to think that you know we were able to build an organization that is really run and managed by Nicaraguans for Nicaraguans. We get an email, and we're on a Zoom call a couple times a month as a resource. We help find some money to fund it, but really they build out programs. And about 6 months ago, they came to us with this idea, like, hey, there's no place for people to learn how to become sewing machine mechanics in the entire country. Why don't we offer that course? And so they did. They figured out how to build it, how to build the course, get like the whole thing. And so now we've just graduated. Last week, we just graduated our 3rd sewing machine mechanics course.
Wow.
And so it's amazing. And so when, for us, I kind of wanted to figure out, well, how do we as Cure, how do we partner with them? And so they said, well, one of the things that students in the sewing class have to learn is how to make a pattern, how to cut it out of fabric, and how to construct a thing. And so I said, if you can make me bags that I could ship my base layer in, I would buy those bags from you. And then the students, so the students basically, yeah, their challenge is to make a bag a certain size, and we give them the dimensions and what the bag needs to look like, and they do everything else. And so all the base layer is shipped in a bag that's recycled fabric or upcycled fabric made by these students in this class.
I know. I noticed that, and I've heard that story before, but I just love it. That is such an innovative and cool way to incorporate that and give back. It is
Well, but
amazing.
it's amazing because what really works in the if you're really trying to change a society or solve a problem, you have to trade this bad thing for a good thing. And it isn't
Right.
just giving money. It's
Right.
it's
Skills.
it's skills, like it's
Yeah.
skills, and then they can trade, and then they can work, and work brings dignity, and work
Yeah.
brings income. I mean,
And
it's
independence.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's wonderful. It's like these mission organizations that go into these countries and they build hospitals, and then the next thing they do is they build a medical school. So then
Yeah.
25 years later, you go back to that mission hospital and it's all staffed by local doctors
Our
that,
local
grew up
doctors.
in slums that are now doing
Yeah.
surgeries. I mean, it's so moving. It's just awesome.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing, which we did not expect, is there's times where we don't the students decide, well, I've graduated, but I don't want to go to work in a sewing factory. I'm actually going to go back to school. And so what's interesting, they usually come to us with like a grade 6 education, and through the class we spend as much time teaching them how to sew as we do talking to them about like finances and budgeting and bank accounts and how to handle team stress and all of those things that they don't know anything about. But so many of them have actually gone on to finish high school, and have some of them have even gone to college. And so it's amazing to think that literally a year before, this individual was picking garbage for $1 a day, and now, a year later, with some help from us, but largely it's amazing how they themselves push themselves, that they want to change their trajectory. Like they're not going to do this garbage thing anymore, and they want out. And they are unbelievably strong, and they teach us how to be brave and how to be strong every day when we look at them plowing this path that is not easy for them. And yeah, we have one that's in accounting now. She's doing her accounting classes, and so it's amazing. It's hugely uplifting.
Yeah, to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, and it's amazing. What is it? It's a little bit of hope. And when you can see that there's a way out, then all of a sudden all that motivation and discipline and all those things you need for success just come, exploding out of you, which is
Yeah,
just
and it's in the community too, because I mean, we went to this one community. It's like, well, this woman took our class, she got a job. Then her brother took the class, got a job, and then their neighbor came to this, like, well, hey, wait a minute, like, you've got like a roof over your head, your kids are going to school, you've got a running water. It's like, you're not any smarter than I am. Like, how do I get this thing? And so
Yeah.
it's, well, you got to go take this class. And so now there's like a whole mini community within the community that has all come through the class, all are working and making money, and kids are going to school, and the whole thing is starting to change. But you see it sort of happening in this sort of, little micro center in this community of change. It's
I know
amazing.
it is. Tim and I have done plenty of mission trips where, we see that happening, and how the community, you're right, it is a micro community, because they all are like, you're doing great. I want in on this too. And it just
Yeah.
totally changes. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, so I'm excited for everybody to get themselves some new workwear apparel. I don't even want to call it scrubs, because scrubs just sound like scrubby and grubby, and
yeah.
you look like Tubby. So we're going to change the name.
Yes. Yes, and
If
and
you've
and
got a good idea, I'm all for it. I'm struggling with a new version of Scrubs.
I
I'm
know.
no,
tired
it
of it
it,
too.
it is
It,
because
I hate that term, because it's just the image you get is just exactly
it's
that.
it's true. Like, these actually make me look more physically attractive if that were possible.
Yes. Physician fashion, or something fun with 2 F's or
There
whatever.
we go.
There you go. Uh, so we will, I guess people could just go to your website at
Absolutely.
KyurMD.com and use our code for the nice massive discount. Um, any sort of last thoughts or words before we wrap up?
I'm hugely positive that this is an amazing market to get into. So I'm excited. I'm excited about the opportunity, and I'm excited about being able to make a difference in this place where it feels like there really hasn't been a lot of innovation, just to actually bring innovation into this space.
Well,
Perfect.
from us, we're totally grateful that you're doing that, because you're exactly right. So amen to that. Thanks for sharing your gifts and talents in the medical space, and we will send traffic your way happily.
Thank you very much.
Don't forget to visit KyurMD.com. That's spelled KYURMD.com to explore their unique range of medical apparel and use the code BSFree25 at checkout for a 25% discount on your first order. Stay connected with us for more interesting episodes where we cut through the BS to bring you the heart of healthcare. And if you found value in our show, please subscribe, share with your friends and colleagues, and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us bring more impactful content your way. Until next time, stay BS free and keep making a difference in the world of healthcare.
It's no secret that medicine is a bit uptight. That's why Tim and I created BS Free MD, to mix things up a little and have fun in the process. Besides, we are having these exact same discussions all the time, so we thought we might as well invite everyone to the party. If you really like us, you can get plenty more and maybe see one of Tim's cool tattoos on our Instagram or Facebook pages at BS Free MD. See you next time.
While we try to keep BS Free MD as raw and real as possible, we can't be held responsible for any medical decisions or discussions had as a result of what you've heard on the show. We know, bummer. But the truth is, we really do care about your questions. So feel free to reach out to us by email at doc@bsfreemd.com.